Back in the we're currently figuring out game genres leave us alone era of video games that we now refer to as the 90s, there were a few noticeable city building game series that were pushing the envelope in terms of gameplay and UI innovations. Though the mainstream choice for the most notable at the time is the Maxis SimCity series, the game we're going to be looking at today comes from the developers Impression Studios' Caesar 3. Caesar features a much deeper focus in economic and military micromanagement than its contemporaries, being arguably one of the hardest city building games ever made. Despite this focus and difficulty being rather unusual for the genre at the time and even today, this game was incredibly well received and critically acclaimed, which begs the question, why is this game nowadays so commonly overlooked and generally dismissed by modern fans of the genre? It would be rather difficult to cover all of this game's systems and general gameplay loop without this video being over an hour long. I'm serious, like the shortest guide on this game is an hour long, but anyway, I'm going to show you one of the earlier missions and that should give you a good idea of how this game differs from the more common city building game formulas. Meet our governor, Buttboy. Buttboy was recently noticed by the Emperor for his unique talents in building the roads. Pleased with this, the Emperor tasked our hero with creating a settlement with 2,500 citizens, a seemingly easy task for the likes of Buttboy. This would, however, prove to be quite the mission. Initially he builds the roads, for who else would? He then designed places people were allowed to move into. He builds an engineering post that would dispatch engineers that would patrol the roads available to them, making sure all the architecture is in order, for otherwise it collapses. He then builds a prefecture. This building dispatches prefects. They will make sure all of the buildings are fire safe, since despite Roman architecture being quite advanced, fires were relatively common, some would say too common. They will also handle any crime or rioting they see. It's good that Buttboy citizens have stable buildings, but sadly they currently lack water. A few wells should fix that. Now, you guessed it, they need food, which is a bit more complicated since sadly you can't just dig a hole for it like water, you gotta throw seeds into said hole and wait, in other words, make farms. Farms require access to labor, which they'll plop out this lad here and he'll walk the streets until he meets a housing block. When he does, it'll check your labor pool to see if you have unemployed citizens. If you do, they will be allocated to the farm and will begin working there. Need a quick way to check your unemployment rate? Build a senate. The size of the building seems a bit much compared to the other stuff in the settlement, but such is Rome. The youths of the farm need a place to go, so he builds a granary. The granary needs a place to redistribute the products to the citizens, so he builds a market. The market will plop out this lady who will walk to the granary and then wander the housing block, distributing the supplies. Therefore, Buttboy ideally chooses to build the market not too far from the source of supplies and not too far from the houses. Buttboy citizens are now eating and drinking. Their houses are stable and a good portion of them have jobs. However, the gods don't care, they're pissed as hell that they've been ignored. So, to avoid getting smited, he builds temples, one for each god as they can get quite jelly. His citizens have been drinking water from wells this entire time, might be time for an upgrade. In comes the reservoir and the aqueducts, to carry drinkable water and provide it to the fountains. Speaking of water, there are quite a few stinky boys in the settlement, nothing a bathhouse can fix, so long as it's in range of a nearby reservoir, that is. Well, citizens are now well taken care of, but good god they're bored. They would require a theatre, and for that you need actors. So Buttboy builds an actor colony. His citizens are rather dumb still, so he builds them a school. What's that? The houses are revolving cause stuff around them is ugly? Well, time to sprinkle some gardens, statues, hell, a house even. After all, Buttboy should treat himself, and modest as he is, he does. Richer folk are starting to move in now, and they're having the audacity to demand clay-related products. So it's time for industry. This doesn't need to be connected to the current block of housing. Making a single house will give whatever jobs are near it access to the worker pool of the rest of the settlement. To set up the industry, he designates clay pits. That has to be near a source of water. The clay collected from said pits need to be taken somewhere. Income warehouses. In that they'll be stored and later taken to the pottery workshop. Oh good lord, somebody got sick and now there's a plague spreading to the city. It's okay, nothing to panic about, just build a doctor's clinic and a hospital. The former will prevent future diseases and the latter will combat the current one. Where are we? Yes, now, he has pottery being produced, but it's quite far away from the market that distributes goods to the people. What now? Well, he makes another market, tells this one to retrieve pottery, and the cartboy will go to the lengths back and forth to move the goods. The market lady now has access to pottery and will distribute it to the richer folk. Alright, well, the fancy folk got bored of a handful of plays offered by the theatre, so Buttboy gave them what they want: death. A big old coliseum is erected right next to their doorstep. This takes up a lot of space, but it only needs to have one of its tiles connected to the road, leaving free space for the future constructions. A few of which need to be done right now. The Colosseum requires a gladiator school, and although optional, a few lions will spice the fights up quite a bit. Now of all times would be fitting to make sure people are happy. God forbid they aren't. It's one thing dealing with protests and such, now you'll be facing loose lions and gladiator, and the protesting likely involves a lot of red. What was that? Gods are pissed again? Well, nothing a good festival won't fix. Thing is, bigger festivals require wine, so without access to that, Buttboy will have to take to the sea for trading. Trade routes are available on either land or sea depending on which city you're required doing commerce with. For sea ones you need a dock, and that needs another warehouse to store goods in. Buttboy tells his trade advisor what he wants to buy, sell, and how much of it. In fact, he should ideally be constantly monitoring his advisors. They give you extremely useful information that might not otherwise be noticed at first glance. Why is the population stagnating? Oh, they want furniture. The audacity. Well, another industry it is then. Again, doesn't need to be connected to the rest of the settlement so long as there is a single house in range. There you go, now we can just sit back and oh, the Emperor demands a batch of oil within the year. Well, we don't have an industry for that, but alright, well, Buttboy will set up another one, I guess. Don't think we have enough population to provide it with enough workers, but the Emperor demands it, so I'm sure shaving off a bit of the clay industry for this one will be fine. Okay, that should work. Not sure if it'll make the 1-year deadline though. It didn't. Good heavens, he's sending me a lot of requests that just aren't feasible, isn't he? And the Emperor got too angry and cancelled the request. Okay, well, guess that leaves space to focus on the other request. Oh god, he's going to arrest Buttboy. And another request got delayed. That's fine, nothing a gift of cheetahs and giraffes won't fix. Oh, he sent a legion. Well, guess that's not really an arrest, is it? It's just slaughtering hundreds of people, really, I mean... And Rome has need of fruit. Fantastic. That was just an example, of course. Hopefully it served its purpose to give you a basic idea of all of the game's system and how they intertwine with one another, and how one thing going off balance can have you stagnate and send you spiraling down population-wise. I haven't even mentioned the military aspect of the game. Well, it's because it's quite simplistic, really. Given the game's genre, it would be rather impressive had they pulled off a great combat gameplay as well, but alas. The game's presentation held up amazingly. The sprite work is detailed, the animations definitely show their age, but do a good enough job at making your city feel alive. Because of the various system we went over, all of the citizens in your city will roam with a purpose. This greatly adds to the living city feel. I find it especially satisfying for some reason watching a warehouse get filled up. I don't know why. The soundtrack is at most times rather calm and relaxing to listen to. The driving but slightly quiet percussion work is overshadowed by the horn-like synths that permeate the atmosphere, though it gets rather repetitive due to the low variety in tracks. The sound design is serviceable, nothing to write home about, but does the job, and the voice acting is fantastic.
You got through those funds quickly. Try to make these new funds last longer.
You can right-click any person in your settlement to get an opinion on how things are going, and it always feels as if they're giving it 110%.
There are ever so many people looking for work here.
There's a lot of unemployment here.
Going back to the question I rhetorically asked earlier in the video, why is this game overlooked? Well, you've likely figured it out by now. It can be punishing to the point of frustration. Many people aren't looking for that. However, the game still managed to garner a small fan base as a cult classic. Season 3, although punishing and difficult, still manages to hit that specific note that more casual city building games offer plenty. You know, when you just sit back and see everything you've worked hard on function like clockwork. Albeit this game will make you work a good deal harder than the others in the genre, it is insanely satisfying, and I would highly recommend that you try it if you haven't yet. Thank you so much for watching, I do appreciate you've made it this far. Have a lovely day.